There's a specific number in your financial life that changes everything. Once you cross it, work quietly transforms from something you have to do into something you choose to do. Before that line, every paycheck matters. Every job loss feels like a threat, and the alarm clock isn't really a choice. After that point, everything changes. Your money now generates enough on its own that your job becomes optional. And for the first time in your adult life, you work because you want to, not because you'll sink if you don't. Almost nobody can tell you where that line actually is. They talk about it in vague terms: financial freedom, enough, but never give you the number. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to find yours. This isn't a story about becoming ultra rich or never working again. It's about a precise, calculable threshold that most people never realize exists. And understanding it might be the single most clarifying thing you ever do with money, because it turns a vague, anxious dream into an actual target you can aim at. We drift through our working lives with a fuzzy sense that we should save more, but without a finish line, saving feels endless and directionless. The truth is, the point at which work becomes optional isn't a mystery or a feeling. It's a number, and it's one you can calculate for your own life in the next few minutes. So let me show you exactly what that number is, how to find yours, and why it's almost certainly different from what you've been led to believe. Start with the core idea, because everything flows from it. Work becomes optional the moment your investments can generate your living expenses without you touching the principal. That's the entire concept in one sentence. It's not about having a huge pile of money sitting in a bank. It's about having enough invested that the returns alone, the money your money produces, cover what your life costs year after year, indefinitely. When your portfolio earns more than you spend, you've reached a kind of financial escape velocity. Your money is now doing the work you used to do. And the beautiful part is that this threshold is entirely calculable, because it depends on just two things: how much your life costs and how much your money can reliably produce. So here's the actual formula, and it's simpler than you'd expect. A widely used guideline in retirement planning suggests you can safely withdraw around 4% of an invested portfolio each year without depleting it over a long horizon. Flip that around and you get your target. Take your annual expenses, the real cost of your life for a year, and multiply by 25. That result is roughly the net worth at which your investments can sustainably cover your spending, which means work has become optional. If your life costs $40,000 a year, your number is about $1 million. If it costs $60,000, your number is around $1.5 million. If you've built a lean life that costs $30,000, your number drops to about $750,000. The math is simple. Your annual spending multiplied by 25. Now sit with what that formula quietly reveals, because it's the part almost everyone misses. Your freedom number is driven by two levers, not one, and most people only ever think about the first. The obvious lever is how much you save and invest, growing the pile. But the second lever is just as powerful and almost entirely ignored: how much your life costs. Because your target is your expenses times 25. Every single dollar you cut from your annual spending lowers your finish line by $25. Reduce your yearly cost of living by $10,000. You've just lowered your freedom number by about $250,000. Let that sink in for a moment. You can reach the line by climbing toward it or by lowering it toward you, and the fastest path for most people is doing both at once. This is why two people with identical incomes can have wildly different freedom dates. One is only trying to save more, while the other is also quietly shrinking the number they're chasing. This reframes the entire pursuit, because it means the person with a modest, well-designed life reaches freedom dramatically faster than the high earner with an expensive one, sometimes decades faster. Consider two people. The first earns a large income, but spends nearly all of it, so their annual expenses are high, which means their freedom number is enormous and forever out of reach. The second earns less, but has built a life that costs little, so their target is small and rapidly approaching. The high spender is running toward a finish line that keeps moving away from them, because every lifestyle upgrade raises their expenses and pushes the number higher. The modest spender is walking calmly toward a line that's standing still. Income determines how fast you can move. But your spending determines where the finish line even is, and that's the lever hardly anyone pulls. There's a second insight hiding in the formula, and it's the one that turns this from a distant dream into something urgent and motivating. The journey isn't linear, and the final stretch accelerates on its own. In the early years, you're doing almost all the work, your contributions are what grow the portfolio, and progress feels painfully slow. But as the pile grows, its own returns start contributing more and more, until eventually your investments are generating gains that rival or exceed what you're adding yourself. Near the end, your money is doing most of the climbing for you. This is why the last portion of the journey to your number often arrives faster than the first, and why quitting early, right when the momentum is finally building, is the most expensive mistake a person can make. The line feels impossibly far for years, and then it isn't, because compound growth does its heaviest lifting right before you arrive. Now, a crucial piece of honesty, because this number is a threshold, not a magic wall. Crossing it doesn't mean you must quit your job the next morning, and it doesn't mean every risk in life vanishes. What it means is that your relationship with work fundamentally changes. You gain options you didn't have before, the ability to walk away from a toxic job, to take a lower paying role you love, to start something of your own, to weather a layoff without panic, to simply breathe. Many people who reach this number keep working, and that's exactly the point. They now work by choice. The freedom isn't in never working again. The freedom is in the optional, in knowing that your survival no longer depends on the next paycheck. That shift from obligation to choice is the entire prize. So here's how to find your own number right now, and it's genuinely worth pausing to do. First, calculate what your life actually costs for a year, not what you think it should cost, but the real figure, honestly. Then multiply that number by 25. That result is your approximate freedom threshold, the net worth at which your investments can carry your life. And here's the powerful follow-up. Look at that number and ask which lever moves it fastest for you. Could you lower your annual expenses in a way that doesn't hurt your happiness, instantly pulling the finish line closer? Could you raise your savings rate to sprint toward it? Most people, seeing their real number for the first time, realize two things at once: that it's more concrete and reachable than they feared, and that they have far more control over where it sits than they ever imagined. The reason so few people ever reach this line isn't that the number is impossibly high. It's that they never calculated it. So they wandered through their working lives without a target, letting their expenses quietly balloon and pushing their own finish line further away every year without noticing. The people who reach financial freedom aren't always the ones who earn the most. They're the ones who knew their number, kept their life's costs in check so that number stayed reachable, and invested with patience while compounding did the rest. They turned a vague hope into a specific, calculable destination, and then they walked toward it on purpose. Because the moment work becomes optional was never a feeling you'd eventually stumble into. It was always a number, your annual expenses, times 25 waiting to be found. Find yours, decide which lever to pull, and for the first time, that distant dream of freedom stops being a fantasy and becomes something with an actual address. The line is real, it's measurable, and starting today, you can calculate your own. And it's probably closer than you think, especially if you're willing to lower the finish line instead of only chasing it